Thank you all very much. It is a rare day when somebody can stand in this chamber and get longer applause than Willie Brown. To everyone who took part in the ceremony, thank you for making this a truly meaningful and memorable experience. Governor Schwarzenegger, though my first months as Speaker overlap with your last months as Governor, I hope we'll have the time to forge a working relationship that'll make a real difference in the lives of the people of the state of California. Constitutional officers, welcome to the People's House. I look forward to working with each of you as we do the people's business. And to the former speakers who honor us with your presence, thank you for your service, for your example, and for your wise counsel. And Justice Moreno, you can't imagine how incredibly thrilled I am to be sworn in as Speaker by someone who is such an incredible champion for justice and progress. Thank you for your service. I also want to acknowledge my partner from across the aisle, Republican leader Martin Garrick, and my partner from across the hall, Senate President Pro Tem Darrell Steinberg, and Speaker Bass. I thank you for your leadership, for your friendship, and for creating a transition that has helped me prepare to accept this great responsibility with all of its challenges. I think you'll agree that the only thing smoother than our transition were the voices of the chorus we heard earlier today. To my family and my friends and my staff who add so much to making my life memorable and meaningful every day, this moment would not have been the same without you. Above all, to you, my colleagues in the Assembly, who've placed your trust in me, it's with profound gratitude and humility that I assume this office to serve as the 68th Speaker of the California State Assembly. You know, the first time I ever walked into this chamber, I was a 16-year-old delegate from the American Legion's Boys State program. I was one of the dozens of kids you see swarming the halls every June. As a 16-year-old, I stood in awe on the floor of this magnificent chamber. I was overcome by the history of this place, where our very laws are debated and created. And it never occurred to me that I could one day stand here amongst you as a member, much less as your Speaker. My first trip to the Capitol wasn't that long ago. But at that time, only a handful of Latinos had ever served in this chamber, and only one Latina had ever served in this chamber. And in the history of the state of California, there had never been an openly gay member of this body. Today, I'm still filled with awe when I stand in this chamber, but now I have more certainty about what's really possible in California, for I am but one example of those golden possibilities. Possible because of people like Ed Roybal, and Phil Soto, and Gloria Molina, whose leadership carved out a path for generations of Latinos to serve our state. Possible because of people like Elaine Noble, and Harvey Milk, and Sheila James Kuehl, who blazed a trail of pride and purpose for gay and lesbian Californians to serve our state. And more important than all, possible because of my parents, whose love and hard work and commitment guided my path. I first became politically active as a junior high school student, and a few years later in high school, I joined a fight against a proposed prison in my community. To my young mind, that was the last thing we needed, so I got active. I registered voters. I attended rallies. I handed out flyers. I even read my first environmental impact report. Somehow it seemed more interesting back then than it does today. But I learned many lessons from that early effort. I learned the power of community, the power of organizing, and the power of perseverance. I learned from the example of a priest I didn't even know, who believed that we deserved better, and he led our community's opposition to the prison. That priest is Father John Moretta, and I'm so honored that he could join us today to deliver the invocation. Thank you, Father John. As I stand here amongst my friends, family, and colleagues for this momentous occasion, this chamber does feel a little empty to me, though. Two extraordinary people are missing, and I can't begin to tell you how keenly I feel their absence. This moment would have never been possible but for the love and hard work and support of my mother and father. This moment is bittersweet because my parents are no longer with us. But I'm heartened by the memory that my mother was actually in this chamber once before, 12 years ago, when my cousin was sworn in as Speaker. And I remember the pride she felt that day. And I pray that again she is filled with pride as she looks down over us. Sitting in the seat that my mother occupied that day is my friend Lois Williams. Lois is that wonderful, loving mother or grandmother we hope every child has. And her presence here, and the presence of so many other special people, Shirley Roberts and Shirley Friedman and Alita Huguenin, they help fill that void left by the absence of my mother. Moments such as this fill us with a sense of vulnerability and emotion that you can't help but reminisce about our families, our childhoods, our driving forces, the things that define the very essence of who we are. In 1903, my mother's father came to California with nothing more than a hope for a decent life and a better future. Today, the second of his grandsons has risen to one of the highest offices in the government of the greatest state in our nation. Can you imagine what he would have said if back then someone would have suggested to him today's possibility? And in 1951, my father came to California with little more than a sixth-grade education, and his opportunities were limited by his circumstance. But he was determined to make a good life. He worked as a sheet metal worker by day and a cook by night until an industrial accident left him permanently disabled. He always worked hard and hard jobs because he had a vision and an unshakable dedication and love for his family. And that dedication didn't end when he could no longer go to work. You don't need to look far to understand where I get my commitment to working people and their families. Though my father never went past the sixth grade, I can vividly remember him helping me with my trigonometry homework and challenging my analysis of the Greek classics that I was studying. In the many generations of my father's family, his children were the first to go to college, and he instilled in us a deep respect for that opportunity. If you listen, outside, there are hundreds of UC students from across the state here at the Capitol today. They're fighting for the same things I fought for as a UC student 20 years ago, and they're doing it the right way, instead of the way that it happened in the streets of Berkeley last Thursday night. They're fighting for the opportunity to partake in the greatest system of higher education in the world. And I ask each of you, to join me in working to turn around an upside-down system where we demand that students pay more every semester for classes that they can't get to fulfill ever-changing requirements for their education. As Speaker, I will fight for all of California's higher education systems, the UC, the CSU, and the community colleges, because we need to restore common sense to higher education and put our students' needs first. You know, growing up, there were many occasions when times were tough, and my parents sat at the table talking over painful choices they needed to make to see us through those difficult days. My parents weren't rich with money, but our home was rich with love, encouragement, hope, and opportunity. And our California family is going through similar times right now and facing similar challenges. Helping solve this dilemma is our paramount concern right now. We don't have sufficient resources to meet all of our needs, but that cannot be an excuse to turn on each other. We must remember that our state is like a big family, and that for our family to be strong, every person must have the opportunity to succeed. Today, across our state, too many families are sitting around too many tables, making too many pointful choices.